Let's now move to Ethereum. Ethereum provides some solution to some problems. The most obvious field of application of Ethereum is DeFi. You know, I've been working in finance for now more than 30 years. And very often I describe finance, and I'm a very good skier, by the way. Very often I have described that working in finance is like practicing ski on a foggy slope. If you are working in finance and you enter into a swap with JP Morgan, let me tell you something. The day you deal with JP Morgan, you don't know anything about JP Morgan. You have maybe some quarterly report that dates back 2 months. If you deal with Lehman Brothers in September 2008, Lehman Brothers is single A+. Okay? So, when I really understood what DeFi was, I realized that suddenly there was an opportunity to practice ski without any kind of fog. It's the opportunity to be completely peer-to-peer, quasi-real-time. Everything is fully open source, plenty of transparency. The access to the market is the same for every single people. You can deal with $100 with $100 million at the same price. It's a fantastic opportunity. Not only the opportunity of DeFi is fantastic, but there are many other fields of application for, you know, what Ethereum can deliver. But there is one problem in this speech. It is here that I'm talking as an industrialist, as an entrepreneur. I am not looking at it from an investment point of view. The question is not whether Ethereum works or not, but whether I can write an investment thesis on the price of Ethereum or not. And you have two obstacles before you write an Ethereum investment thesis. The first one, it is the fact that Ethereum is an extremely complex model. When you buy a stock, the investment thesis, it is that the profits are going to grow. When you buy Ethereum, you are not buying the thesis that it is useful. You need to buy something which is going to grow its price. So we have built this model, we have built the model, which is relatively complex. And we know we have a model which is coherent and rational on how much the price would increase if the usage of Ethereum would increase. And I'm not going to tell you all of the models here because of lack of time, but I can give you an example. In fact, if today there are about 10 transactions per second on Ethereum. To give you a scale, on Visa, you have about 1,700 transactions every second. Imagine that Ethereum goes from 10 to 10,000 transactions a second. It's enormous. It's an extremely positive scenario, extremely optimistic scenario. It is reasonable to assess from our point of view, from our subjective point of view, that if this was going to happen, it is reasonable to assess that the price of Ethereum will be multiplied by 10. This is, in our mind, the investment case, the investment, thesis on the object called Ethereum. When you buy Ethereum, you have something which potentially could be multiplied by 10 in price if the transactions go from 10 transactions per second to 10,000 transactions per second. This is the investment thesis of Ethereum. Frankly, from my subjective point of view, it's not extremely appealing. Because growing the transaction from 10 per second to 10,000 per second is gigantic. If this happens, probably the prices of transaction are going to be divided by 10, and the price of Ether will go up tenfold. This is the objective investment thesis of Ethereum. Now, there is one phenomenon that you should take into account. It is that there is an adverse scenario. This is a positive scenario. Now there is an adverse scenario. The adverse scenario we have represented here by the project Onyx. It's only a representation of it. I'm absolutely sure that blockchain is going to completely transform the world of finance. I'm absolutely sure that decentralization has nothing to do with this transformation. What is very crucial in Bitcoin, it is the fact it is central. Because the real problem of central banks, it is that they are central. The problem of banks is not that they are central. The problem of banks, it is that they are not peer-to-peer. So I'm absolutely sure that a day will come, and I am ready to bet whatever you want on that, a day will come at which Bank of America, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citicorp are going to meet. They are going to form a consortium, and they are going to create a blockchain which will compete with Ethereum. A blockchain that will not be central, that will not be decentralized, that will be completely centralized, because this is the only way, in my mind, for DeFi to make sense. It needs to be centralized. You will be able to buy shares, securities representing its blockchain. This corporate way to build a system which is completely peer-to-peer, that will realize DeFi and potentially some other projects, but it doesn't make sense for this project to be decentralized. Because this project needs to be fluid, and the same way that Ethereum is changing every day, every week, every year there is a change. Ethereum used to be inflationist, it's deflationist. It used to be proof of work, it's now proof of stake. It will need other changes, so you need to have a central entity that will take those decisions. So I have another 5 minutes, I think. Let's talk about NFTs quickly. This is more for fun, more an intellectual exercise, but let's talk about that. For more than a year, I was a little bit struggling with how to give value to NFTs in the world of art. What is really the added value to the world of art of NFTs? And for a few months, I was really struggling until one day I woke up, one morning I woke up, and eureka, I find the answer. So I took my mobile phone, I called my assistant, and I told her, I want you to buy 30 exemplaries of this book. The Manifesto of Surrealism by André Breton, because I knew the answer was in that book. In fact, if you look at the history of arts, you will see that from time to time, and especially in the 19th century, the world of art is hit by a catastrophe. And there was a catastrophe that took place in the 19th century in the world of art. What is this catastrophe? It is the invention of photography. And because for thousands of years, the biggest aim of the art was to try to represent reality. And suddenly, this aim vanished because no painter in the world, no sculptor in the world would be ever able to present reality as accurately as a photography. It was really a catastrophe in the world of art. And in his subconscious, art had to find an answer to this catastrophe. It had to find a different aim than the representation of reality. What was the first aim of representation? That was not about reality. It was to try to represent not reality anymore, but to represent impressions. Because no photo machine would ever be able, no camera would ever be able to convey an impression. Then art invented other things, like trying to represent the 3 dimensions of an object in 2 dimensions. This is cubism. And you have abstract art, which is not trying to represent anything anymore, trying to represent symbols, etc. And the manifesto of surrealism is about trying to explain that surrealism is about trying to represent dreams. And there is no camera in the world that will ever be able to capture a dream. There is another catastrophe that hit the world of art at the end of the 20th century. It is digitalization. For thousands of years, art used to consist into manipulating atoms. Now art is about manipulating zeros and ones. And this is a catastrophe, not really in the world of art, but on the market of art. And because if it is zeros and ones, there is no concept anymore of unicity. The storage phenomena is completely different. The fact that you can enjoy a piece of art is going to be different. It's really about the market of art, not about performing art itself. And it's very important to realize that now most of artists, here you have the most expensive living artist in the world, and David Hockney. David Hockney does not paint with a brush, he paints with zeros and ones. What is an NFT? An NFT, what is the only privilege you have when you own an NFT? Think about it. When you own an NFT, you don't own the piece of art, because the piece of art is on OpenSea. Everybody can enjoy it the same way. The only thing that you really own when you own an NFT, it is the privilege to say, I have funded the artist. In fact, we are back to the Renaissance era. When the Medicis family used to fund Michelangelo, it used never to own the piece of art. It was only being able to say, I am the one who funded Michelangelo. When you own the NFT, you can say, I have funded the artist, or I have funded the one who funded the one who funded the artist. So in effect, an NFT is a proof of philanthropy. When you buy an NFT, you are buying the investment thesis that the proof of philanthropy has value. That's it. So if ever you buy an NFT with the aim of making money, this is in fact the thesis you are buying. And no need to tell you that at TOBAM, subjectively, we believe in the investment thesis of Bitcoin, we don't believe in the investment thesis of Ethereum, and we don't believe in the investment thesis of NFTs in the world of art.